We are 2 weeks into Scott Frost's tenure back at UCF. It's time to grade the Knights and see how they're doing.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Turn us on, turn us up. We'll turn it out. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Joining me as he does from time to time is my good friend James Duncan, UCF sports commentator extraordinaire. We're here to talk a little UCF football. James, we got a little early bye week. Now, when this schedule came out, I don't know how I felt about the early bye week, but now after seeing 2 weeks of whatever this was, I'm very happy that they have the bye week between North Carolina A&T and North Carolina. So look, Scott Frost has got some things to clean up. Before we started recording, we started talking about some of those things, but we're going to start with grades for the Knights. 2 weeks in, man, how do you feel? Let's start with the defense. Alex Grinch's defense did not give up a ton to North Carolina A&T. Now, this was not a very good football team. They beat them up pretty good. But talk to me, man. What's the 2-week report card grade A through F here on Alex Grinch's defense?
Yeah, I would say for the defense, I would give it an A+ if we had played some big talent. But because it's kind of unproven against real Power 5 talent, I'm going to go with a B+. +3 in the turnover margin is good. One of those fumbles, you can't really credit to yourself because it was just kind of a guy flinging the ball around and you just happened to pick it up. Antoine with a good grab there. But a good pick last week, and then a forced fumble in the end zone for a touchdown this week. I think defense has played really, really well. We had a defensive score, like I said, +3 in the turnover margin, only allowed 17 points on the season, but once again, unproven, Mike, unproven.
Yeah, look, versus North Carolina A&T, I was a little disappointed. Only 2 sacks. But 11 tackles for loss, though, not bad. They didn't give up a ton. Obviously, North Carolina A&T couldn't manage more than one score in this one. So it was a beatdown of epic proportions in what kind of was a sloppy game for UCF. So, it's crazy. Like, I think I'm going to give the defense a C+. And I think that may be grading a tiny bit hard, but the opponents have to be considered here. And I don't want to give the illusion that there's not a ton of room for growth. So when we start throwing around grades, if you say, oh, well, it's a B, do I think they're playing at an average level right now? No, I think that they're playing at a below average level, but they got luck that they're fortunate that these first 2 opponents, they don't have to play at an average level to win big. So I would like to see more turnovers forced. Only 1 interception and 1 fumble in a 61-point win. And if you're UCF and you're going to steal some games, you've got to force turnovers. And I'd like to see them be a little bit more adept at that. What do you think about their ability to be able to force turnovers so far through the season?
I think the interception number is slightly skewed because I think that after losing 2 quarterbacks, NCAA really just focused on keeping the football on the ground. And they didn't really throw a lot with their quarterbacks. I think had they given more time to put the ball in the air, there would have been 1 or 2 more picks. Our guys got to the ball pretty well. And, I think it was Jaden somebody. There's too many Jadens on this team. It wasn't Jaden Williams because I know Jaden didn't play. I think it was Jaden McDonald, linebacker transfer. Yeah. So I think he was the one that was able to get the diving interception.
He was.
I'm okay with having 2 picks in 2 games. I'm okay with that.
Look, again, gonna have to step it up here. Headed into conference play, they open conference play against Kansas State, but first comes North Carolina, which I think will be a good litmus test for where this team is at. Personally, now, there were some standouts here on defense that really Sincere Edwards. 3.5 tackles for loss. And then Malachi Lawrence had 1.5 tackles for loss. Those guys kind of led the way. You also had Rodney Lora, who had 3 tackles for a loss in this one. If you're Alex Grinch, you've got to identify your disruptors, your guys who can get in there and make things havoc for the opposing team offense, so that UCF can have a chance in some of these games. Man, look, there are going to be a lot of games where they're going to struggle to score, and I think that's where I want to move to the offensive side of the ball here. We've got to give a grade on the offense. We're going to do special teams before we get out of here, but I'm going to start with this one. I think that the offense is, for me right now, a solid C. Not C plus, not C minus, just a C. And look, it's clear that Scott Frost was in search of a quarterback headed into game one that gave the job to Cam Fancher. He lost the job before the end of the game. Tayven Jackson seemed to come in and play much better in the time that he was given, and which underscores that it was a close race. He didn't rule out that we could have seen those guys no matter what in these first couple games, but the decision gets a little bit more simple, I think, with the Cam Fancher injury. And then after what was a really, really strong showing at the end of game one for Tayven Jackson, I thought pretty lackluster showing in game two. Now, he had some drops we noticed. I thought he laid one perfect out there to Marcus Burke on that first drive that should have been caught, wasn't. He came back and he hit Dwayne Thomas Jr. On another one that was down at the one. But talk to me, man, like about this offense and where you feel like they're at here. I need a grade on them, James. If you give anything higher than a B minus, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna go with a little higher than you. I was just gonna go with a C plus. I think that there's so much room to grow. I would have loved to have seen a passing touchdown out of Tavin Jackson that past game, and I don't think he had one. I think he had 2 runs in for touchdowns, as well as just regular touchdowns from other guys running the football in. Now, granted, he's only really played 4 quarters of football. He played obviously the second half for Jack State, and then he kind of played the first half mostly for A&T. Jacurri and Davi held the back end of that game. Now, here's the thing. I think in terms of talent, I think this offense is a B plus. In terms of talent. In terms of where they are at right now, I think a C plus is fine. I think they can move up a full letter grade in terms of talent. I think this is, or in terms of execution, I think, because I think that the talent is there. The ability for these guys to move the rock is insane. I mean, Jaden Nixon, 1 week having, minus 10 rushing yards to having 250 plus all-purpose yards is unreal. I don't know if I've ever seen a running back get offensive player of the week in a Power 5 conference with only 5 carries. So the guy did amazingly well. Just need to see that same level of explosiveness in the weeks to come.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Scott Frost highlighted his wide receivers headed into fall camp. He likes that group a lot. I think there's a lot of playmaking ability in that wide receiver room. They had 14 catches for 204 yards. Dwayne Thomas Jr., DJ Black, and Wayden Charles led the way with 3 receptions apiece. Dwayne Thomas Jr. there, obviously, he only had 3 targets, and he caught all 3 targets. So for 68 yards there, and I think there's still playmaking ability there, but as far as running back is concerned, Jaden Nixon had a pretty good bounce back game. I think a poor showing in game 1 and a really, really good showing in game 2 for him.
Yeah, and I haven't. Something that worries me is that I haven't really seen Myles have like a really poor game or a really great game yet. He's kind of just been stuck in the middle of the pack. He's getting a lot of the carries in that backfield, and it just seems, and this obviously we'll talk about in the last segment, but it just seems like he's not getting any movement up front.
Yeah, I would agree. It was pretty disappointing. 8 carries for like what 35 yards.
Something like that.
Yeah, man. It left some to be desired. But again,
Yeah.
that's why you have a two-headed monster. We had heard that Jaden Nixon was doing really well in camp. I was surprised at his game 1 performance. And then when I saw him in game 2, I said, oh, there's the guy we heard about all off season. So look, I'm sure both those guys have tons of time to improve here, especially with the bye week, I think coming at a really good time for this offense. But all eyes will be on quarterback here going against North Carolina. Does Cam Fancher come back? Is Tayven Jackson got a stranglehold on the job against North Carolina? We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This great ginger and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever having to leave the green. Golf is about good times with good people and good flavors. The great ginger lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go without leaving the course or chasing down the beverage cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament, of course. Ends October 31st, 2025. This episode of Locked On UCF is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. That's the kind of action I'm looking for. FanDuel.com. The Tayven Project. Tayven Jackson, 12 for 21 versus North Carolina A&T for 189 yards. No touchdowns, no interceptions. A 57% completion percentage. That's going to need to get better headed into Power 4 play here, man. Talk to me about what you're seeing from Tayven Jackson right now. I thought, again, when he had to step in, he did the job and really rescued UCF from what would have been an embarrassing game 1 loss. They got their tenure kicked off with a win because of Tayven Jackson. He did what he needed to do versus North Carolina A&T, but I thought that you didn't need a high volume of throws, but I would have liked to see him be a little bit more efficient. You noted there were some drops out there, but certainly there were some missed opportunities in the passing game.
Yeah, definitely a few drops that aren't on him. I think if a couple balls are placed a little bit more in stride, you get a little bit more yards after catch in a certain on a couple of these. We mentioned the Dwayne Thomas one earlier. I know we talked about that before we got on. But just if that ball's put a little more in his reach, he might be able to stretch that across the end line there, and you get 7 immediately instead of having to rush for it, which we've looked okay in the red zone, but anytime that you can just get in the end zone, that's how you want to do it. So rather than having to push against the front five of another team. So you never want to have to deal with that. I think there was just a lot to be desired from Tayven from this game. I once again think pass protection was not phenomenal. I think it was actually pretty piss poor. Would love to see him have slightly more time to go through progression. I think a lot of the times he's looking at his first read and he's not seeing it. And by the time he's already made his first one or two looks, he's out of time. So he has to get out. So he's had to make a lot of throws on the run, which obviously makes things harder. He's had to get out of the pocket quite a bit. So I'd love to see, and that worries me, seeing that against a G5 and an FCS team. I'm very, very worried for Tayven and his ability to not be pressured in the pocket when it comes to these Power 5 teams.
Yeah, I agree. Now, the PFF numbers may be a little misleading because he's been pretty good at avoiding pressure in the pocket. So when you look at the pressure rate, it says he was only under pressure on 9.1% of his dropbacks. You got to watch the game to kind of know that that's a misleading stat there. But look, man, at the end of the day, he's going to have to be maybe a little better than his line in spots, because this is not going to be a perfect situation in year one for him or for UCF's offense. And if you're Scott Frost, you've got to get creative about your play calling, and you've got to focus on getting the ball out of his hands quickly. And, he's got to help his coach out and go through his reads and be adept at reading the defense, maybe even understanding how to get off his first read before the ball is snapped when necessary. I had a friend who played for the Colts, and he used to talk about playing with Peyton Manning back in the day, and that's what it was like. He said the thing about Peyton was he knew where he was going with the ball before the ball was snapped, and that didn't mean that he was going to his first read. He could be on his third read before that's how smart he was. But certainly, if you're Scott Frost and McKenzie Milton, you got to get this guy. You've got to be better than your peers in conference at coaching quarterbacks so that they can process the game at that level. It gives you such an edge, man. And you can have average talent look great, man, when they're feeling the game like that. So the Tavin Jackson project will continue. Probably one of the more disappointing stats against North Carolina A&T. He took 7 shots down the field and only connected on one of them, and it was to Dwayne Thomas Jr. down at the 1. Is deep ball, man, and those deep mids need some work.
Yeah, for sure. And I think 2 or 3 of those were drops. There was one to Marcus Burke that I know there was a drop definitely there. So I think, that stat line is slightly off. I would put some of that responsibility on the wide receivers, but yeah, the deep ball could definitely use some work. I would love to see some 50-50 balls downfield. The 2021 through 2023 Knights took plenty of deep shots downfield because they believed that their talent was better than the other team's talent. And I think a lot of times, between Javon and Kobe, you had a guy that was able to get up there and go make a catch. And I think you've got this year, I think you've got more than one guy that can get up there and go make a catch. So why not take those deep shots? Now we talk about the Tayven project. What about the Jacurri project, Mike? This guy had 2 touchdowns, and he had like 6 carries for 100+ yards. It needs to be acknowledged that this guy is an athlete. Now, why haven't we put him in the running back room? I'm not sure. I know it's a deep room.
He's got to be willing. He's got to be a willing participant.
I would love to see a 2 quarterback halfback toss set where there was some sort of run option with that. Like, I don't know why we haven't worked that in. This guy is an athlete, Mike.
Yeah, he is. Look, and he's a great ball carrier for certainly, but now I'm telling you, it is a touchy subject when you start talking about these guys switching positions, particularly the athletic quarterbacks. I have covered college football for a long time, man, and I'm telling you, there are very few who go willingly when
Yeah.
you talk about that switch. So, look, Jacari Brown, his legs were never the question, even last year.
Yeah.
It was always about late in game, could he hit the broadside of a barn? And last year, it was rough. Have they worked on that this year? Well, he only had 3 pass attempts in this one, so we didn't really get to gauge if he had made much progress. He completed two of 3 passes for 15 yards. But look, man, Jacari Brown gives you a different dynamic. Now, if he can complete those passes a little bit more efficiently, a lot more efficiently than he did last year. Uh, to me, he would be a no-brainer to start because his athleticism is otherworldly. But this is why he was clearly behind the other two
Yeah.
coming into fall camp, right? Like it's his arm. It's always been his arm. But look, clearly the Knights have some places that they need to grow. We're going to talk about those areas of growth headed into the bye week right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, guys, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app makes it super simple, and you can see your exact seat view. That's panoramic seat views before you buy. I love the zone deals too. Like, you can pick a section. Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Game Time today. Biggest areas of improvement before we get out of here, I'm going to say that off the pass pro, man, pass protection. These quarterbacks need as much help as possible, and you cannot let what happened in game 1 to Camp Fancher happen to your quarterbacks going forward. Now, we made a lot of fun of Gus last year for being on his 4th string quarterback with no injuries. But I'll tell you, there won't be a high tolerance for quarterbacks getting hurt because you're not protecting their blind side. What happened to Cam Fancher was inexcusable. That can never happen. Can't let them get blown up like that. So for me, it's pass protection. I think that they've got to go back to the drawing board with this offensive line, figure out their protections. And look, man, if you can't pass block at a high level, then the play calling has to compensate, James, right? You got to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands and help the quarterback, the receivers, the quarterback out a little bit, help the line out a lot. Slow developing play action plays cannot be part of your offense when you cannot pass protect. So, I'm looking at pass protection, man. I hope they can get that right before North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to just agree with you. I would bring up my own topic, but I think that in terms of importance, that's definitely number one.
Yeah.
You can't risk losing another guy that plays QB, especially one that you feel might be giving you a better chance than your original QB1. You got to kind of take this and really run with it. You need better pass pro. You need to be able to air the ball out. We know that we can move the ball on the ground, and we have explosive guys in the run game. We've got explosive wide receivers. The guy just has to have enough time to be able to get it there.
Yeah. It's gonna be like this staff is gonna show off their development skills quite a bit in year 1, right? Like, again, we knew this wasn't gonna be perfect. A lot of fans seemed like after those first couple drives in game 1, there were a lot of fans that were like, "Oh, we're a 4-win team. You and I are in a group chat where it was like instant gloom and doom, man. After like 10 minutes, I was like, yes, it's a lot of season left, man. Come on,
season was over.
The first 10 minutes. But you can get a lot better in season, and that's where I think the staff flexes a little bit. It's about development. It's about teaching. It's about getting guys to believe that they can win, because that belief can be a solid thing when another team maybe takes UCF for granted, doesn't bring their A game, and you beat a lot of teams that people think that you can't beat. So, look, no reason to get down now. I still think this is a roster that can make a bowl game. I'm sticking by that until such a time as they don't. They're already 2/6 of the way there, man. Like, they already got 2 wins under their belt. 4 more. And I know that every UCF fan hopes that we're right and hoping that these guys can make a bowl game. James Duncan, UCF sports commentator, I want to thank you for joining me today, guys. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. It's another big moment on Locked On. College football fans, Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's own local experts. The college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season and only on Fire TV. We'll be back at you guys tomorrow with more Locked On UCF.